I can say that I'm deeply impressed. Because you have to have a sex-obsessed mind in a very specific, upper-class academic way in order to build a movie like this out of a novel that contains no single sex scene. But I have a question for you. For the cast. Did any of you actually read the book? Did you read the plot? Because obviously Fennel stopped at chapter 16. Thankfully. Otherwise, she would have messed up the second half as well and made a new love story between Cathy Jr. and Hareton out of her sexual fantasy, probably with more bread, or fish, or slugs. So what basically happened is this. Fennel read half the book when she was 14 years old, had a fever dream about it, filled in the gaps between the pages with her imagination, and then 20 years later had the resources to take one of the greatest novels in English literature, strip it of everything that made it great, and replace it with shocking sexual moments just for the sake of shocking. For God's sake, they did not even have sex, not even once. And that's the whole point that fuels the obsession and the tragedy. It is the impossibility of the physical connection. You'll understand in the explanation. So yes, I'm impressed. Because it takes a delusional audacity to insult a great book in that way, and then ask us to call it art. Dear university professors, congratulations, because now you have to explain to your students who watch the movie that this is not the book. You will face questions like, Professor, if Heathcliff and Cathy were having sex the whole time, why does everyone say the tragedy is about unconsummated longing? And you will have to sit there and say, no, none of that is in the book. That's just what Emerald Fennel imagined when she was 14 and had a fever dream. Let me walk you through every single thing Fennel removed from the novel and explain why each cut mutilates the meaning. Because this isn't adaptation. This is a hatchet job performed by someone who skimmed the cliff notes and lost them. 1. The entire second half of the novel. Catherine dies in chapter 16. The book has another 18 chapters, literally half the story, about what happens after her death. In those chapters, Heathcliff's revenge expands to the next generation. He abuses his own son. He forces Cathy's daughter to marry that son. He destroys Hindley's son by denying him education and treating him like an animal. And finally, the two surviving children find each other and break the cycle of hate. The novel ends with hope. Without the second half, the novel's entire meaning collapses. This isn't a love story. It's a story about how trauma passes through generations, how abuse creates abusers, and how the only way to escape is to stop the cycle. Fennel cuts all of that and leaves us with, they loved each other, and then she died. That's not Wuthering Heights. That's a Hallmark card written by someone who didn't finish the book. The CBC review puts it bluntly. Cutting the second half virtually removes the entire purpose of the novel in the first place. But hey, who needs purpose when you have bread making? 2. Hindley Earnshaw, Cathy's brother. Hindley is completely removed from the film. Poof, gone, like he never existed. In the book, Hindley is Cathy's older brother. When their father brings young Heathcliff home, Hindley is immediately jealous and cruel. After Mr. Earnshaw dies, Hindley becomes the master of Wuthering Heights and systematically abuses Heathcliff, demoting him to servant, denying him education, forcing him to do manual labour, treating him like an animal. Hindley's abuse is the entire reason Heathcliff becomes a monster. The novel shows how trauma creates trauma. Heathcliff is abused, so he becomes an abuser. That's the point. Without Hindley, Heathcliff's cruelty has no origin. He's just evil for no reason. He's just a moody guy who broods and fucks on rocks. Fennel transferred some of Hindley's alcoholism to Mr. Earnshaw, but that's not the same. Mr. Earnshaw in the film becomes violent toward both Cathy and Heathcliff together. In the book, Mr. Earnshaw actually doted on Heathcliff. That's what made Hindley so jealous. Fennel flipped the entire dynamic and removed the foundational relationship that drives the plot. But sure, who needs character motivation when you have Jacob Elordi's cheekbones? 3. Lockwood, the narrator. Lockwood, the tenant who rents Thrushcross Grange and frames the entire story, is completely removed. In the book, Lockwood arrives from London, meets Heathcliff, gets snowed in, and has a nightmare about a ghost child at the window, Catherine's ghost begging to be let in. That nightmare kicks off the entire narrative. Nellie Dean then tells him the backstory over several nights. The frame narrative creates distance and ambiguity. We're never sure if the ghosts are real or just Lockwood's dream. We're never sure if Nellie is a